all about writing with Ben and Sara.
Welcome to All About Writing, the podcast that covers everything about the world of writing from the inside out. This is episode 47, part 7 on our series on screenwriting. I'm Sara here with my co-host Ben, who is an award-winning best-selling author and ghostwriter, editor, and publisher.
And I'm Ben, here with my co-host Sara, who is an award-winning best-selling author, screenwriter, editor, and TED Talk presenter. And with us here today, we are super excited to have Spade Robinson, who's coming to talk about screenwriting. And you know what? I don't think anyone can summarize themselves better than that person. So Spade, please tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Spade Robinson. I am a filmmaker and screenwriter. I'm also a story consultant and a film professor. I am a big believer in film education and transparency in the film industry. And my life is all about helping filmmakers have sustainable lives and careers so that their voices aren't missing in the field. We need all of the voices. And it's really important that filmmakers can make a living doing this. And that's what my job is all about.
Well, wow. And where do we start with that? I mean, that's awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I just have a question. You mentioned you're a professor. Please tell us more about that.
Yes. So I teach film classes at the University of Arkansas, in Arkansas, and Belmont University in Nashville. I teach at Belmont, I teach the art of storytelling, and I teach a class called Festivals and Markets, and I concentrate on the market side. So I take my students, mostly graduating seniors, through the process of knowing how to navigate film markets, and that is all about the business of film. That's what I'm really passionate about teaching students about. And so they go through the process of packaging a film as if they were taking a film out to market. And then the course that I teach at U of A is called, it's a long title, Special Topics, Producing the Feature Film. But they do something very similar where they go through the process of choosing a screenplay, packaging that screenplay, coming up with a budget and a deck and everything, and pitching that to me. And it's all about teaching them, the business of film. They read the trades every day. They have to understand what's happening in the film industry. So they understand who's buying, who's selling, what things are being bought and sold for, as we continue to sort of navigate this very, I would say, shifting time in the film industry right now.
It really is. We could go on an entire episode about that. All I'm doing is reading the paper every day and going, "Oh my gosh, something." No, Warner's doing what? Like, what's the charge? You know what though? I would love for you to just also talk to our audience. So a lot of who we are, our listeners are really beginning in the entertainment industry on all levels. And when you talk about teaching all your students across the board on packaging a film, can you explain what that means? I mean, I
Yeah.
know, but I think everybody would love to hear it from an expert.
Absolutely. So packaging a film is just putting together the building blocks for what makes a project a project. And I think of it like if I take a mannequin and then start to dress it, then that would be like packaging a film. So who are the people attached? What is the script what is the story we're talking about? What genre is it? What budget level is it? Who's the talent in front of the camera, who's the talent behind the camera, and who are the representatives taking it to market. So if I were to dress a movie of all of its elements, that's the film's package. And its value is really based off of its package. How it performs in the market is based off of all those pieces.
Yeah, how much can you sell it for? Yeah.
I think
Exactly.
you've captured very quickly one of the great challenges of filmmaking, which uh, authors of books just don't have to come across. Because when you're the author of a book, it's just you, and you got your idea, and you give it to your agent to give to the editor. But when it's a film, like, there's so many more people involved. And if you're writing a screenplay, that's awesome. But you're just part of this. You may be the thing that gets it off the ground, but there's so many more people that have to be involved before the project even gets going.
Absolutely. And it's for better or for worse. Like the wonderful thing about so many people being involved is that you have all of these hopefully genius minds making the thing better, right? But then for worse, it's that you actually do need all of these genius minds making things better, and all of these people cost money, and rightfully so.
Yeah. So on that, with from a writer's perspective, uh, if you write a screenplay, you can't just sort of, take it to Hollywood and get it made. Um, what role does the screenwriter, does the writer play in the process of packaging up the movie and putting it together? Like, are they a central player, or are they kind of a side player, and it's the director, or it's the producer, or whoever is sort of in the center? What's the screenwriter's role in the early stages of trying to get a project together?
So the most annoying answer in the entire world is it depends.
Mm,
Um,
fair
and it depends. It really depends on the genesis of the project, right? So let's say I'm a studio and I have an IP that my studio already owns, and I'm want to invite writers in to do their take on my IP. So I own the IP. I'm going to reach out to the agents and managers in town and say, could you send me a list of your clients that can do a take on this IP that I own? And then I'll take meetings and then choose the take that I want for that writer. And because of that, the studio is the genesis of the project, and the screenwriter is less of the driving force. But let's say you have a writer director and they're the visionary behind the project, they're usually the driving force to then bring on the producer and bring on the talent. Um, and be the genesis for picking the project. And then sometimes you have a producer that is out looking for projects to produce, and they are the genesis of it. So they are reaching out to their agent and manager friends and getting scripts to come in, and then they become the driving force behind the project. So it really is a question of who's creating the momentum, and then that will tell you how big of a role that the screenwriter has in the project.
Yeah.
That's a really good way of explaining it, because you're right. I mean, screenwriters, I think sometimes you assume that you have a lot more control than you do.
Oh
Um,
man.
right? I mean, how many times do I know I've talked to writers who are like, all I want to do is just sit on set and watch it. I'm like, you're going to be lucky to get on set. And if you are, you're going to have duct tape over your mouth. Like, you can't talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was also going to ask too, in your bio, you talked about being a story consultant. And since we're kind of already talking about the storytelling aspect of this and, story within Hollywood, what does a story consultant do?
So I describe it as helping writers get to the most compelling version of their story, but my role is sort of split down the middle. I spend about half of my time working one-on-one with screenwriters in environments just like this to help them get to the most compelling version of their story. But my other set of clients are studios, networks, and nonprofit organizations that work with screenwriters and filmmakers. So if I'm working with a film independent or a Sundance Institute, I'm reading an influx of screenplays and then helping them choose a cohort that they may support through a lab or another creative opportunity. If it is working with the studio, then I'm reading an influx of screenplays and then helping them, but for a different reason. So it's less creative support and more sort of job driven. Like, they're creating a group of filmmakers that they can then hire for a television show, if it's a network, or for another kind of fellowship that leads to paid work. So because I work sort of on both sides of the spectrum, I can help screenwriters understand what studios and networks are looking for. And then I can also help studios and networks understand sort of what's trending in the field, what's happening with screenwriters and filmmakers, and how to best cultivate a voice for the cohort or the work they're looking for.
Are there any basic principles of story in screenwriting that you can apply to any genre or style, or does it really depend?
Yes. Yes. So I would say sometimes genre will lend itself to a certain structure, but there are certain things that are universal. And there is no version of a good story that has not invested in character development, world building, authentic dialogue, realistic and complex relationships. So things like that, every story needs. And the more I'm able to dig into that with a writer and pull back the veil of the story that they're trying to tell, the more we can use a cocktail of some of these universal principles along with the specificity of the story that they want to tell. So I think the magic sauce is the marriage of universal themes with the specificity of a plot or a specificity of a structure that is either unique to their personal experiences or unique to the genre of the story.
So it is there's a lot of similarities, what you're talking about between writing a screenplay or working in that side of the entertainment industry and writing a novel. It's just the formats are different, and obviously the industry is looking for different things at different times. I think the beauty of writing, say, books, and creating that kind of IP is you have a longer tail. Like, it's not moving as fast. I mean, story today in this environment is completely different than it was even a year ago or 5 years ago. I mean, I would love if you could talk about uh how different or what the industry is like today for writers or content creators or filmmakers, because we're all kind of grouped into that entertainment industry, as it were. What makes it such a I would love to two-prong it, what makes it a challenging environment to be a creative, and also what makes it super exciting right now to be a creative. I mean, I have my own opinions, but I'm really interested to hear what you think, in that you're in the trenches.
Yeah. So starting with what makes it challenging is just the vehicles that stories are being told through. So whereas traditionally, you needed the budget of a studio in order to distribute a film widely, to get the kind of numbers of eyeballs that you need to make the kind of revenue to sustain the big project that goes into like a feature, right? And so because of that, the volume of projects could only be so much because the avenues were only so many, like five major studios, right? Um, and with that, there's a bit of a machine, there's a bit of a rhythm that goes into making compelling, exciting stories. And I think the challenge had to do with that system being so narrow that the gatekeeping was both, it's going to be controversial, but the gatekeeping was both huge challenge and somewhat necessary, right? Um, so I would say less than 2% of people who attempt to make a career out of filmmaking are able to do it under that system, which is a huge challenge. Not just the heartache that goes through with understanding that it is more likely that you'll be a part of the 98%, but also understanding from a voice perspective all the voices that are going to be missing in the field and then reflect in film. So there's this exercise that one of my film professors took us through my very first semester at USC, and I'm actually traveling right now. I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas, teaching a girls' film lab for teenage girls. And I had them do the same exercise. So here's the exercise. We had to make a list of all the things that we learned from watching films, right? And I found it very compelling and strangely emotional when I had to do the exercise. And I had the girls do it. And they started to make a list of all the things that they learned watching films. And they came to understand so much of the internal sexism that they have inherited came from learning how to be in the world by way of watching films. And that is a byproduct of so many voices missing in the field, only a narrow sect of people being able to tell stories. And that itself is its own challenge, because film creates the culture of the world that we live in. It teaches us how to behave in a certain way. Okay, so those are the challenges. When it comes to what I see as exciting is, as we broaden these channels, yes, there's a lot more white noise, but there's also a lot more opportunity for more voices to sort of pierce through that white noise, because things are becoming increasingly democratic, muddy, but democratic. And I think the excitement comes from that democracy, the ability for people to kind of get access to more voices, even if it's messy, even if it's muddy. That muddiness creates a different version of the culture in which we learn how to behave in the world. And I do think that's exciting, and the opportunities that become more open because of the democracy of those systems. Now, when it comes to the commerce side of things, I think we're still learning what that means commercially, in terms of how filmmakers are going to get paid, which in that system, there were a lot fewer people getting paid, but it was extremely clear how that was going to happen. And I think now there are going to be a lot more people who are going to find a way to be commercial. And by commercial, I don't mean mainstream. I just mean commercially viable, like money in your pocket. I do think there's going to be a lot more opportunities because technology is a lot more accessible, which comes along with its own challenges, because with less gatekeeping means there's less gatekeeping. But with democracy becomes the good and the bad. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we saw this in the writing industry and publishing about 15 years ago when self-publishing sort of became a thing, with the invention of ebooks and online selling and print on demand. The floodgates are now open for anybody to be an author who wanted to be, with basically no barrier to entry, which was great. But you talk about the noise, the the number of books that are published nowadays. Like, it used to be, maybe 10,000. Now it's 10 million. And trying to rise up in that and actually be noticed and be taken seriously was a challenge for a long time. And publishing has had 15 years to kind of figure this out, and we're getting
Mm,
there. We're getting there. So it's interesting to see that film is kind of going through the same thing right now.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I was gonna say to me right now it's exciting because it is the Wild West again. Because the gatekeeping is less rigid, and because there are different challenges that create opportunity for people who are willing to try something different and put their voice or put their resources and time to creating different coalitions to build their films or to distribute their films. Um, it's been really exciting to be on the cusp of that and to be having conversations with people in the industry who are willing to kind of dive into the Wild West with you. And I say that, in general to our listeners, in that it almost feels like for the first time since I've been in the industry past 8 years or so, it feels like there's way more opportunity than there ever was before, and that's really exciting.
I agree. And I really think that we're on the precipice of really shifting formally, like format wise, which can be exciting. Now, it can also be stressful for those of us who are like classically trained in one way, and now we have to shift. Whereas the uphill battle to shift may be, it's like learning how to ski. I fall all the time. I like fall all the way down the mountain. But kids who are closer to the ground, just because they're shorter, are like can learn skiing so much easier. And so just starting out, you can be a lot more flexible. And I think I've had to go through a process, and a lot of filmmakers who came up with me have to go through the process of grieving what they thought success would look like. Um, and being open to telling stories in a different form based off of things that are shifting, like attention span and the kinds of screens that you're going to have access to talk to people through, and all of those things.
I think you said a really interesting point right there. You said they're grieving what success looks like. I think that's it's really important as the industry changes to not just cling to what success used to look like, and that's the only way to be successful. And you said it was very clearly defined, and I think it's really important to be able to say, well, I'm not that, but I don't have to be that to be successful because I've got all these ways to do it now. That's a really great way to think about it.
I was going to ask too, I mean, what's your opinion on what success for storytellers looks like in this changing time? I mean, what advice do you give your students, when you tell them what to aim for and any goals? I mean, is there some sort of kind of, even in this the sand is shifting under our feet as we speak every day, the news is different, but there has to maybe be some through lines to, this is a good story, or these are some tenets of what it takes to kind of find some sort of success. Do you have any kind of tried and true things that you can offer that work behind the lines? Like, no one knows this about screenwriting, but if you do XYZ, you have a better chance of getting your story seen on tiny screens or in 5-minute increments or whatever format that ends up being.
Yes, I do. I can't promise you that's going to be a very sexy story.
Heck yeah.
So what I tell my students all the time is that people die and films do not. And it should be your goal to tell stories that are going to be timeless. So the themes that you explore and the people that you reflect, um, and the narratives that you sort of ride the roller coaster of, and you present to people, I think that they need to be authentic and real and vulnerable and exciting and thrilling and honest. All I ask is that you be honest about the human experience. And I think that is what is going to make your project last a long time, regardless of what format you're in. In terms of making a living, I think that it behooves you to intimately understand the business that you're in. When I was in film school, I didn't realize this about myself at the time, but I was sort of lazy and arrogant and thought that I could ride the coattails of talent and that would be enough. Spoiler alert, it is not. You need to understand the buying and selling of the product so that you can navigate the field intelligently. And the last thing I would say is you need to have a life. The way to redefine success in a way that's going to last the rest of your life, no matter what happens in the field, is having relationships that matter, having experiences that are important to you, and making work that is significant, that says something about the world that we live in. The other stuff, and we all know what the other stuff is, right? The awards and accolades, and not just making money just to sustain yourself, but a surplus to do whatever you will, whether it's to help people or to make you feel good or whatever. Like, I'm agnostic about that. I tell my students all the time that all your films should have a priority and your crew should be on the same page about that. So choose top 3, and I don't care what they are. So whether it's I'm making this movie to make money, I'm making this movie to create social change, I'm making this movie to create my to move my career forward, I'm making this movie to just make a beautiful thing. I don't care what it is, as long as you're honest with yourself about what it is and you're honest with your team about what it is. I am not gonna, if like I'm making this movie to be famous, great, beautiful, let's do it. So I'm agnostic about why you're doing it. That's your business, but you need to know what it is. You need to be honest about what it is. You need to be transparent with your team. And I think then you can define what success looks like. Some people just want to create social change. That's it. Some people just need to make a certain amount of money. That's it. Some people just need to make a beautiful thing and it's all about art. That's it. And once you know what that is, that should be your definition of success.
Well said. Maybe the best definition of success we've had on this podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because it's true. I mean, everybody's truth is different. And to some people it's having 100 people see what they've created, and to other people it's making $100,000, and nothing is right or wrong. But that's a really great way of approaching your creation, your projects, no matter what they are, um, is to have a very honest idea of what that success looks like, even if it seems unobtainable for now.
Yeah, because you can be super pious. You can be like, oh, I don't care about the fame. I don't care about the money. I only want to change lives. If you're lying, you're gonna be disappointed as hell. So let's just figure out how to get you that fame, or else what are we doing?
Right. 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 And that's where the whole team comes in too. I mean, it takes a team to make a movie.
It
Or-
takes a team and it influences your creative choices. So you always have to work backwards, right? From what you want, what's the business of that thing, and then what's on the page of the script. So if you're not clear about what you want, then I think the creative choices you make down the line and the business choices you make down the line will shift. You're going to choose a different shot choice if you are doing it for making money versus if you just want to create a beautiful thing. All of these things are so tightly connected that you can't be aloof about what you want out of it and then think you're going to be crystal clear about your shot list. These things are connected. So that's why I asked that you be really clear about that.
Yeah, for sure. I also wanted to talk a little bit about anything, well, not me talk about, but ask you, what are maybe one or two things that are hidden to most people getting started in this industry? To me, when I first got started, it felt like I was entering an industry where, in publishing, you can go traditional, you can go indie, you can go self-published. There's very specific kind of trajectories on each path, depending on what you choose. You know what to expect, you know what's coming, and there are some set guidelines regardless. But with film and TV and everything, it felt like I was trying to do a jigsaw puzzle where the puzzle shapes and colors were constantly changing. There was no rhyme or reason. Everything was hidden behind an iron veil, and you could not figure out information. What are some things that you feel, especially early storytellers and creatives, don't know that would behoove them to know about the industry that's not widely known, but is kind of a universal truth behind that iron curtain?
I would say the number one thing is understanding how people get hired.
Oh, okay. So
When
how do
you
people
follow the money, you know how to position yourself. So I went to the University of Southern California for film school. Um, uh, there's this list. I don't know the list. I don't know who publishes the list. On some list, they were the number one film school in the world for like a bunch of years running. I don't know if they still are. But the only reason why I'm bringing that up is because graduating from that film school, I still didn't know how to be a filmmaker. I still didn't know how to become a filmmaker. I didn't know how to get hired as a director. I was just like navigating, like networking and writing scripts and trying to get into programs and fellowships. And I still didn't know really how it worked. Tell you what changed my life. I lived with a studio executive for a number of years. And then the light bulb went off. I was like, oh, okay. So whenever there's a movie project about to go up, at least from the studio's perspective, there is studio executives reach out to representatives to get a list of filmmakers, either directors or writers, to come and pitch on a project. Okay, that's one way a movie is made. It's not every way a movie is made, but that's one way. And when I understood how, and she was taking meetings and hiring directors and hiring writers. And when I understood that system, I was like, oh, I need to be on that list. How do you get on a list? Well, these are lists that agents and managers send to the studio to pitch their clients, or a network if it's television, right? To pitch their clients. Okay, so if representatives are pitching their clients to get jobs, and that's how people get hired to write and direct television or write and direct feature films, then that relationship is something I need to be on the inside of. So then I need to figure out how to be represented by the right person, right? Represented by someone who understands how to pitch writers like me, which means I need to understand my voice well enough to understand which agencies or representatives I need to be either querying or getting relationships with, so that in all of my networking, I don't network amiss. I think a lot of times we know what job we want, but we don't know who hires who. So if I go to a networking event with a bunch of directors and directors don't hire directors, what am I doing? Right? So, or if I want to work in TV, but I'm networking in a certain way, but I don't understand that showrunners are the ones that have a budget, and that they're the ones that hire writers, and that they hire writers based off of having certain amount of story editors, a certain amount of co-EPs, a certain amount. So then I understand if I want to get on a new show, then I need to either come in as a writer's assistant, or I need to come in as a writer's room PA, or I need to have a certain skill or life experiences that matches the show. And that is based off of either a direct relationship with the showrunner or with my representative who understands what shows are going up, which they know how to send me out. So when I understood like where the money's coming from and who hired who, my relationships were a lot more, I want to say strategic, but in a less gross way. I would say I knew how to communicate in my relationships better. And I knew how to cultivate relationships in certain ways. So I know people feel weird about networking and it's uncomfortable and it could be gross and weird. I think it's only gross and weird when you feel like you're using someone or you want to be used. I think it's important to create genuine friendships. It's extremely important. But in that, you still need to know what to ask for, and you still need to know who to ask, and you still need to know if you're doing favors for other people, what kind of favors are gonna drain you and what kind of favors aren't. So I guess that's a very long way to say what I'm saying, but I think following the money and understanding who hires who helps you save a lot of time and energy when you're trying to break into the industry.
Hey, that was awesome. This is fantastic.
And there's a lot of words. I say a lot of words.
We're talking about networking, and how you say it can feel kind of gross. And there's Sarah shaking her head. There's me nodding because we're kind of different folks. And Sarah's all charming, and everyone loves her, and she can network anybody. Whereas I'm just a little writer. I just sit here and don't want to talk to anybody. So we both feel that. We both understand that. Yeah, networking is something that it's a good life skill to have for anything, but particularly if you want to get into this industry, because not just who you know, but knowing who you have to sort of get in front of is key.
Absolutely.
And not abusing the relationships you have, which is the dance, right?
I will tell you, the superpower for anybody in this industry has less to do with all the time how you utilize relationships and more how you do favors for people, because the currency is not money, right? The currency is favors. So, I mean, in Hollywood and DC, but do better than what DC is doing. So, when you do favors for people, if they're going to be effective, you are making introductions that are really going to help people because you understand how things work. right? So you're not just being like, oh, you should meet such and such. Oh, I'm going to set you up an email and connect you to such and such. And then those things fizzle out. And then people don't think of you as like, oh my gosh, she's the person who got me this job. Oh, she's the person who introduced me to something. I'd do anything for her. You want those kind of favors in your back pocket so you can pull out when you need them. Well, you pull them out when they're effective. And when you know how things work, you know how not just to support yourself, but just to support people in your network as well.
I think that that's right there is a nugget of truth that isn't talked about enough. It's more than networking. It is a world of favors. And as you know, Ben is a Canadian. I'm a Wisconsinite. We are very like, I'm sorry, whatever you need. Like we're very you do favors without an ulterior motive because it's just not the culture of where we come from, but it is the culture of the film industry. And I think that learning how to navigate that is a huge unknown piece of the puzzle that kind of comes with practice, wouldn't you say? I mean, that's
I would
yeah.
say that. And I would say that even though you're doing favors for your friends, you're not doing it necessarily expecting anything in return. You're doing it because you care about them and you care about the field. You care about the energy. You care about helping create the culture and maintain the culture that we look out for each other. We're artists, and that's what we do. We look out for each other. However, you do understand that this is such a vulnerable position to be in, and you are going to need help. We all need help because packaging a project, putting it together, if you haven't made 6 features that did great business already, you are putting something together and you don't have the money to pay a casting director to reach into their black book and make an introduction for you. And you don't have the finances to get on a plane and fly to Berlin for EFM, right? So you need your friend who's already going to maybe let you crash on their sofa, or if you're out there and you meet somebody who you know is looking to do a co-production between America and Italy, could we need each other so much that it is both helping to cultivate that culture and make sure it keeps going, and it is creating a permission for yourself to ask. Because if you don't do anything for anybody else, you're going to be super nervous to ask. But if you know you're generous all the time, then you're able to leverage your vulnerability more and be like, I need a favor, and know that it's going to be okay.
That's great advice. I mean, I think that that's one of those cogs in the wheel that people don't understand when they're trying to get in and they think it's going to be a linear path, and it's not. It's
Oh
a
my
very
gosh.
messy web of contacts and favors and learning and sharing and helping. And I think that's part of why they say, Hollywood is a small little big town, right? Everybody kind of knows everybody or of somebody that knows somebody. You have to treat people well, because of that.
You have to, and it feels good too. It's a marathon and not a sprint, and I know this is not the kind of thing that anybody wants to talk about. But having like a burst of success doesn't mean that's your whole story. I mean, I hope it is. I hope it prays that it just goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up. But it could be like this and then this, or it could be like this and then you're like, I mean, I can't tell you. Okay, so I'll tell you one story. I worked on a feature 2018/2019, and I was working with a PA, post-production PA, who sweet guy, wonderful, did his job amazingly, but he right out of film school had written a feature. It got picked up. They made this beautiful film in Italy, and it had these like high A-list actors in it, and he was like, I'm on set, I'm in Italy, I'm chilling, this is what I wanted, and it's happening so fast. And then then he was the post-production PA on our film, and I think I was an assistant to the director. So I also was in a support role. Um, but it's so unpredictable that you want a network of people who have your back, like on a personal level, because nobody can promise you any version of your career. It's just we all have no idea. And that camaraderie, even if it's not somebody who can do you a favor, but somebody you can call in the middle of the night and be like, I'm scared. You need all of those kinds of support to sustain yourself.
Well said.
Wow. I mean, for
Ben's
anyone who's
investing. He's
yeah,
less in
for
the
anyone who's
industry
thinking
than
of
I am.
getting into the industry, I mean, it's great to hear this stuff now, so that people can go in with their eyes wide open and understand that it's not just sitting at your keyboard, churning out gold page after page. It's there's a lot more to it to be in this industry, and it's really important because they're different skill sets. And I appreciate Spade you sharing this with us because it's really valuable for all of us to hear.
It is. And before we wrap up, because I feel like we could go forever, but I would love to hear one last thing, Spade. If there are places where people who are in the industry or just getting started in the film industry or transitioning from books to film, like where do you recommend they kind of go to look for additional resources? Is that Film Independent? Is that, ISA Connect? Like where can they go to keep learning, keep meeting people? What do you recommend?
So I would say in terms of becoming a stronger writer, it's a really good cocktail of watching a lot, right? So watching a lot of things, especially in the genre that you write in. Reading a lot. There's a ton of resources online. Like you can usually Google the name of a screenplay and PDF and find that script. So I suggest reading the script first and then watching the film, and then you get a really good appetite of how something on the page translates to the screen. And then fellowships are really great. They are competitive, like fellowships, labs, stuff like that. They're extremely competitive, but they are a little bit of a barometer for where your work is. So you can get to like a semi-finalist and be like, okay, I'm getting closer, and then a finalist, and then you get in, or maybe you don't get in, but you get to the interview phase. It's a barometer for like how your work is improving. So if you don't go through like a traditional school setting, that's a great way to sense like how your voice is maturing and stuff like that. I would also say if you have the ability to be in a writer's group, I mean, if for nothing else, even if none of you have a ton of experience, for nothing else, to keep a schedule, right? So it's a writing practice, kind of like yoga. You do it over and over, you get a lot better. And it also helps you to self curate. I'm a big fan of being a self curator. There's, of course, services where you can work with somebody like me, or I think Screencraft, which may be closing. But there's
Get it.
uh, but there are organizations that will give you feedback on your screenplay.
Okay.
How do I say this delicately? Learning how to self curate is the biggest muscle you can have to understand when something is ready. Yes, you want fresh eyes. Yes, you want a fresh perspective. Never go without that. But knowing when something is ready to get fresh eyes is a great way to mature your understanding of what's good and what's not. Any discussions you can have about films and scripts, iron sharpening iron, to be able to articulate what's working, what's not working, only makes you a better writer. So those are not like official, I guess, locations, but like how to grow your craft in a more, I guess, abstract kind of way.
No, thank you. That's a great list. It's wonderful. And then also too, I mean, before we close out the episode, where can people find you, whether it's to hire you as a story consultant, or if you have anywhere you can have people follow you on any social media, where can they find you? A website, anything?
Yes. So my website is atlantafilmproject.com. So you can find my services there. I have a screenwriting book called Script from Scratch, where you can just basically have an idea and then go through the workbook and then, go through the development process for your screenplay. So you can get the book there. You can book time on my calendar so we can work on your screenplay together. And then I'm on TikTok as much as I have time for giving screenwriting advice or film business advice, as much as I can. I think we have to get rid of the smoke and mirrors and the vagueness of it all and be like, this is how you can chart a path forward. I think that gives us a lot more power when we are very clear with each other about how to get this done. And it takes the power away from the gatekeepers, I think.
Perfect. Well, we'll definitely have your website and everything in our item description. So if people want to click straight through, we certainly will have that available. And so thank you, Spade, for being here with us today and for sharing everything with all of their listeners. I'm really excited for everyone to hear what you've shared and the transparency you've offered everybody. And I'll just remind everybody not to forget to subscribe, so you don't miss any of these chats where we're sharing all this great information on the entertainment industry. Feel free to leave a review. And if anyone else is looking for help to get their book, not their script, ready for the world, don't forget, we recommend our friends at Cascadia Author Services at cascadiaauthorservices.com. And you can find Ben at bennettrcoles.com, as well as Facebook and Instagram.
And you can catch up with Sara at saradahman.com and on Instagram. Thanks for joining us today. Please reach out if there are any topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll see you again when we next chat all about writing.
This has been All About Writing with Ben and Sara.